Is going on? If you guys can just give me just a little bit of time so that I can get these links to the people who need them, that would be so very appreciated. I hope everyone is doing well, and I can't thank you enough for tuning in. I'm really excited to share this with you guys. I wasn't entirely sure if I was really ever going to talk about the elimination or the detox that I went through, but I figured, well, not that I figured, I just had this really big moment a couple of days ago. And I just wrote down all my thoughts, and I was like, this would be kind of fun to talk about. So I was like, okay, I'll give them a little bit, but sometimes the entire story, the entire experience is not for everyone. But that's okay because some of those lessons truly are just for me. And let me make sure I am posting this in the right space. Okay, circles all taken care of. Unfortunately, my phone is the recording agent, so it is what it is. Anyway, what's going on, guys? This is great. Let's hop straight into it. Why don't we? So I've labeled this, you're not supposed to feel this tired. And if you see me look away, I'm looking at my notes. Why you no longer feel alive and the system that reverses the cause. So for those of you that don't know me, my name is JC. I have been a practitioner of something called the mucusless diet healing system for over 4 years. And I study under the world's leading expert in the practice, Professor Spira. And Professor Spira was trained by a man named Willie Smart Jr. In our community, we call him Brother Air, and he's one of the greatest living practitioners of the mucusless diet healing system. I am also the chief media manager for an organization which Professor Spira founded called Mucus Free Life. And our goal, our mission is to preserve and expose the world to the teachings of Professor Arnold Ehret, who is the creator of the mucusless diet healing system. So, for those of you that don't know what the mucusless diet healing system is, it is the life's work of Professor Arnold Ehret, who is a great natural healer or naturopath. So Ehret spent decades experimenting on himself and helping thousands of others using something called the mucusless diet, as well as short or long periods of fasting. Now, through all this work, Ehret came to a conclusion that the foundational cause of all human ailments, all human suffering, is obstruction. And so, this obstruction inside of the body consists primarily of a mucus like slime, harmful acids, residues from drugs, and other waste. So, the big question is how did this obstruction get into our body? And this is from the mucusless diet healing system perspective. This obstruction entered into our body through wrong eating. So this is mainly eating foods which are pus forming. And so pus is a mucus like slime of animal origin, but it's also extremely acidic and in a very bad way. I actually don't really know much good acids other than stomach acids, but pus forming foods are all animal meats. So chicken, beef, pork, cat, dog, horse, fish, crab, lobster, clams, oyster, anything that is an animal, and all the blood from animals, all of that is pus forming. All dairy is pus forming. So butter, sour cream, yogurt, milk, all of that. Eggs, pretty much if it is from an animal or it is an animal, it's going to be pus forming. And then there's mucus forming foods, which are all plant based starches, grains, cereals, bread, rice, potatoes, beans, all plant based fats, nuts, seeds, oils, olives, avocados. Gasp. I know. Crazy. And then all processed vegan junk food, like without exception. And so mucus forming foods, we actually use those in the practice of mucus diet healing system in a specific way, but I'll talk about that later on. And then the drug residues find their way into the body through the use of recreational and prescription drugs. So weed, nicotine, psychedelics, NyQuil, Dayquil, ibuprofen, Tylenol, and over the counter prescriptions and so on. So unlike mainstream diets, which are just foodless that allow or prohibit certain foods, this system, the mucusless diet healing system, is centered around slowly and safely removing obstruction. And this is done mainly by using less harmful natural whole foods like fruits and vegetables to move away from the most harmful foods, the pus and mucus forming foods. But sometimes, like I said, we use the mucus forming foods, along with short and long periods of fasting and other natural therapies like exercise, sunbathing, breath work, and more. So, this removal of obstruction is known by practitioners as elimination. But the more mainstream understanding of basically the same concept is a term called detox. Sorry, I still have some residual obstruction trying to leave me from this elimination. But speaking about that elimination, now that we know everything we need to know, I want to share with you guys a story. And so, to set the stage, this story begins in late December, post Christmas. And I began to enter into one of the most intense eliminations or detoxes I have ever experienced. And to spare you the details, a lot of old obstructions were being eliminated from my head. Put it like that. And there are actually methods that allow you to tell exactly what you are eliminating or detoxing from your body. Because remember, the obstruction in our body, from the perspective of the mucus diet healing system, found its way into our body through wrong eating. So, what and when did we previously consume something which is now leaving our body? So, I personally have developed methods to reveal what my body is eliminating. And those methods often induce really strong visuals that allow me to see exactly where I was, who I was with, how old I was, how I felt at the time, what I was thinking, and so on. I pretty much, if I can fully give myself to the moment, get the opportunity to relive the exact moment that I was eating whatever I was eating that is now leaving me. And so what I experienced, and let me tell you, it was the dead of night. It was probably about like 2:30 a.m. I hadn't really gotten a night's sleep in about like 2, 3 days because I couldn't lay down. I had to be sitting straight up the entire time. So in the dead of night, this childhood memory resurfaced. And I was around 9 to 10 years old. And I was in Puerto Rico, which is where I grew up. So I saw that I had really strong creative capabilities. I saw how when I was bored, I would start generating ideas. And those ideas alone excited me and stimulated me enough to act. And that action, through the excitement, just annihilated my boredom. Play, imagination, movement were all natural and stimulating things that I did. And that stimulation was so satisfying in the sense that it was so fulfilling. I didn't desire anything else. I didn't want to go eat. I didn't want to go inside when people called me to go inside. I didn't want to stop playing. In short, like my life, my mind, my desires, they weren't food centric. And that food centric is a really important piece for the later part of this video. And so when I started to look back at my memories of interacting with other children that were the same age at that time, I saw that this is exactly how other children normally functioned. We bonded not through food but through play. Play that was driven by ideas that allowed others to plug into the same excitement, that provided the very same refined stimulation that I was experiencing, that, as I said before, was extremely satiating. And there was a huge contrast to my experience versus the adults around me. See, in this memory, I was in a living room of a family member's house. And I'm not going to go into details about any of this, about like the specifics of the people that were in there. But I remember the adults around me just felt so empty, like so low energy. And it was like there was nothing really going on inside of them, like no creativity, no spark for life. And they were all unwilling to play with me. And so the feeling of being unable to connect with some of the adults around me, even if I really wanted to connect with them, which I did, was a very familiar feeling in my childhood. And so visually speaking, the interesting thing was is I couldn't see clearly who was around me. They were like a gray black translucent silhouette of the individual. So like imagine my body, make like a full 3D outline of my body, my hair, everything, and then completely remove all the details, all the color. And it's almost just like this gray black kind of see-through, almost smoky, wispy texture thing going on that filled this shell of an outline. And you can see this as a subconscious representation of how I thought of them. Low energy shells. And I don't mean this disrespectfully, like at all. I'm just trying to share honestly, um, as possible, what I observed in this experience. And so at this time, I realized that unlike the children that I spent so much time with at school and hanging out with as friends, these adults did not solve boredom in the same way as me by generating ideas that were so exciting that it drove them to the point of action, thus annihilating the boredom. They solved boredom through eating or stimulation, I should say. And when they were bored, stressed, or fatigued, they just went and consumed food. That was what I observed time and time and time again. And the food was often highly stimulating pus and mucus forming foods. And so this led me to a critical realization that bonding through stimulation was how I was going to connect with these adults that I so desperately wanted to have a connection with. And the way that to connect with them was the way to connect with them was solving our similar boredom problem, not through play. And I remember, but it was through eating. And I remember being in this living room, wanting so badly just to play. But the adult who was responsible for me on that day had another idea. Let's get food. And instead of fighting, I went along with it. And we drove to a small stand on the side of the road, which was run by a local at the town that I was staying at. And we ate some deep fried, really salty seafood. And that's just extremely stimulating pus and mucus forming food. It was like this seafood that was in this like dough that had been deep fried. And so after eating, the gray silhouette just like dissolved, and it revealed in full color the loving adult that I knew so well. And this adult became animated, they became social, they became more playful. And I learned something that day, that for adults, stimulation gives them the energy to connect. They can't draw it out of themselves. There needs to be an outside force that gives them a way to connect. And I realized that there's like two fundamental different ways of being. There's the unobstructed children who are stimulated by thought and bond through action and creativity, often resulting They bond through action and creativity, which is often a result of seeing those ideas that they generated through with the action. And then there's obstructed adults, which are stimulated by eating and bond through pus and mucus forming foods, drinking, and sometimes drugs. What I didn't understand at the time was that the adults were using eating to deal with boredom, to deal with stress, to deal with anger, guilt, shame, fatigue. And this applies not only to food, but to alcohol, nicotine, weed, and other substances. All of those were used as ways to deal with these undesirable emotions. And so this was my first conscious introduction to the death culture of the world. Professor Spira introduced me to this term, and I heard him and his mentor, Brother Air, use it when they criticize and critique the current condition of humanity. The way that I understand it, death culture describes a society that centers its identity, its entertainment, its spiritual beliefs, its bonding practices, and so much more around death, activities that shortens one's lifespan, and other degenerate practices. I'm just trying to give a definition to my understanding of this word that I hear Spira and his mentor use. So, a familiar example of this being that, con- sorry, a familiar example of some of these degenerate practices would be the consumption of things that shortens one's lifespan, but in turn stimulates them to feel more alive temporarily so that they can more easily and more enjoyably socialize with other people. And so, again, I'm not attacking anyone with this statement. I'm just sharing that that behavior is an example of death culture practice. And that's essentially what me and this adult did is we consumed something which was going to produce very harmful obstructions, and it stimulated us. And for that person, for that adult, it stimulated them to the point where now they felt awake, now they felt alive, now they had the energy to more easily and enjoyably socialize with me and connect with me. So, returning to the mucusless diet healing system, from Eric's perspective, this obstruction causes disease, it causes ailments, it causes suffering. And most disease, if left untreated, generally results in death. So, by that logic, if we move in the opposite direction, meaning we unobstruct the body, then we should get the opposite of death, which is better health. Well, the practice of the mucusless diet healing system is centered around slowly and safely removing harmful obstruction. And it's been my experience because my body did become unobstructed and I started to experience better health as a result. And this has been the same experience for Professor Spira and his mentor, Brother Air, and hundreds of thousands of people around the world who practice the mucusless diet healing system. But the overlooked truth that Spira showed me is that the act of becoming unobstructed is holistic, as in, as the body becomes unobstructed, the mind or mental body is becoming unobstructed. The emotions or emotional body is becoming unobstructed. The spirit is becoming unobstructed. And this is where this rebirth experience, which I hear about so commonly in the mucus free community, occurs. And so, one of the beliefs that I hold is that most people's identity is built around their energy levels. And a lot of people have very, very, very low energy levels. The daily afternoon crashes of energy is super common. Chronic fatigue, the low energy mornings where they can barely get out of bed. This is all their everyday experience. And their minds are a result, as a result, are just so tired They're unable to think any other thoughts. They're usually living within the same thought loops every single day, and they're unable to explore more creative, colorful, inspiring thoughts. Problems like brain fog are just normalized. But brain fog is the result of an obstructive body, which results in an obstructed mind. And it is not normal to not have clarity of thought. And as it relates to unobstructing the mind, as the physical body becomes unobstructed, the mental obstructions will dissipate, and thought becomes sharper, and creativity returns like a tidal wave, just like the vitality the physical body lost. It returns sometimes very gradually, but sometimes you just wake up and you're like, holy crap, I feel like electricity's flowing through my veins right now. Mental sensitivity increases dramatically. And mucusless diet healing system practitioners often realize that this clarity of mind is what I'm actually supposed to be experiencing all of the time. And so you might also begin to realize that you are not just this body, you are not just this mind, that there is something that animates the body, that animates the mind. And, like, for example, for those of you that ever been to a funeral, you see that it leaves the body upon death, leaving behind an inanimate body and mind that we once used to know as a specific person. But the essence of that person, the thing that was that person, is gone. And I like to think of that as the person's spirit. And so physical and mental obstruction dulls awareness of spirit, in my experience. And so becoming unobstructed restores awareness of spirit. It's extremely subtle. And then you learn methods of how to unobstruct spirit using spiritual technology like prayer, yogic sciences, and so on. And again, I'm not an authority on any of this. I'm just sharing what's worked for me and my own observations that I've experienced throughout my journey. And so it is my personal belief, though, that you cannot fully understand the nature of something unless it is functioning normally. So, like, for example, what are the true nature of the body, the mind, and the spirit? I'm not claiming to know what the true nature of these things are. But what I am claiming to know is that when they become unobstructed, which is possible through the practice of the mucusless diet healing system, they begin to function like they were always supposed to. And so that is when the sense of feeling alive not only returns, but it dramatically amplifies far beyond anything in recent memory. And so life begins to regain its color. A sense of joy and protection come over you. A sense of hope for a better future returns. Sometimes it's even like a sense of knowing that a better future is guaranteed for you, so long as you keep doing the work that unobstructs you and unobstructs your life. You start becoming grounded in the present moment. That becomes your norm. Everything in nature everything from nature obtains a level of beauty. And everything from nature, you start to feel like just how sacred it is. You no longer feel like you're moving in the direction of pain. You no longer feel like you're becoming numb to life. You no longer feel hopeless or as fearful or as dissatisfied, or so much grief or so much disappointment or anger. You move away from all those things. The practice of the mucusless diet healing system, the practice of unobstructing the body, which unobstructs the mind, which unobstructs the spirit, is the total opposite of, like, the experience of that is a total opposite of the experience that you get by following what death culture society believes to be normal. And so the result of doing this practice correctly, in my opinion, And as Eric says in his book, Rational Fasting, is a total regeneration of the body, mind, and spirit. But like, let's get real. Like, what do you actually need to do to experience this stuff? Like, forget all the foo-foo thought. Like, give me action steps. And honestly, it's really simple. Using mainly mucus-free foods, which are raw or cooked, starch and fat-free fruits and vegetables, you properly combine and eat these foods. So, for example, you learn how to combine and eat different fruits correctly if you are mixing fruit as a meal. Most of the time, you're probably just going to be having mono fruit meals, meaning just one fruit as a meal. I know that might seem foreign to some people, but you can gradually transition your diet to make that your reality. But it takes time. You learn how to build salads correctly. Yes, there's a very specific way to actually build a salad. So you dramatically increase how quickly that the food that you ate, including the vegetables, including that salad, leaves your body. And this is important because these mucus free foods are not foods which are going to obstruct you like pus and mucus forming foods. They have qualities which allow them to help the body unobstruct itself. So fruit, for example, it acts like a dissolver, right? Like imagine if you had a really greasy plate. If you took a lemon, you cut it in half, and you just juice that lemon, and you just allowed that lemon juice to sit on that greasy plate, it would start to dissolve the waste. And then if you took a green leafy vegetable like kale and you just scrub that plate, you would get the waste out. So the lemons, the fruit juices, act very similarly inside of your body. It's going to dissolve the hardened obstruction in your body, in your digestive tract, in your tissues. And the vegetables, specifically in the digestive tract, are going to broom the walls of your intestine. And so any waste which you have loosened and dissolved through your fruit meal is just going to be um, broomed and loosened. And then when you have a bowel movement, you expel it, you eliminate it, you detox it, you get it out of your body. So that's a very simple way to explain how we use fruits and vegetables to unobstruct the body. And so you also learn how to eat cooked starches and plant-based fats. Remember, mucus forming foods, we do actually use them, but we eat them in a very specific way. And when you do that, those foods help you stay grounded. They help you stay satiated. You're not desiring all these other more harmful foods. You're literally like, oh, I hit the spot. And they help you take care of any cravings you have. So you can really, especially if you're good in the kitchen, you know how to use cooked starch and plant-based fats to create the same flavors, the same textures that you miss so much from your previous life of eating the harmful foods. You also learn how to put enough space between your meals and drinks and other activities so you can properly digest your meals and have them leave you in less than 24 hours. And so, right eating is so important because we need to don't obstruct. We're not obstructing anymore. We're unobstructing and cleaning the digestive tract, especially in the beginning. Like that's our very first goal. And so this means cleaning the stomach, the intestines, the colon, and you can do all of that through right eating. And so once we clean out the digestive tract, that's when we gain more access to our entire tissue system. And then we can really begin to unobstruct and clean our body on a much deeper level. And right now, we're working on making it as easy as possible for you to learn how to do this. Like I probably said all that, and you probably sat back and it's like, there's no way I'm going to study and learn how to do all of these things. At Mucus Free Life, we are aiming to have a 100% free course that teaches you exactly how to do this, with our goal being in under 60 minutes, in under 1 hour. I want you to learn how to eat in a way that took me 4 years of intensive study with the leading experts in the field. And our goal is, like I said, to teach you all of this in under 60 minutes. And you'll be doing this while eating food that is literally so delicious you'll wish you had a second stomach. And I promise you, I've never been more happy with the food that I'm eating. But right now, I'm editing the video. I'm editing the whole course, I should say. There's multiple videos, and it's coming along really, really well. I just had a meeting today with Spira and our chief of operations, Brady, about it. And so by the end of the month, first week of February, it is our goal to have it out. And I genuinely believe in this course and the services we've built already that expand upon this course. I believe they're going to completely disrupt the natural living, the natural diet marketplace in the best way possible. Because my goal with this course and all these things is that people are able to take correct action by themselves continuously over a long period of time without needing to study. And they experience all of the benefits of someone who studied without the actual study. And if they want to actually know the why behind what they're doing, that's when it's time to study. And we already have all of that covered for you. So if you want to learn when the course is dropping, you can sign up for the Mucus Free Life newsletter. We're aiming to release this again at the first week of February, and you'll be the first to know, and you'll be able to apply to be a tester. Now, let's see if I can grab that link for you guys really quick. Probably should have had that. Probably should have had that ready earlier. But that's okay. You know, we live and we learn. And for everyone that's been watching, really, really appreciate you guys. It is, yeah, it is a joy to be doing this, to be sharing this. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for your patience. All right. So, for those of you that are watching this, all right, I see YouTube is seeing it. Facebook, I'm gonna drop it in the chat real fast. Bam, bam, bam. Bam, bam, bam. Dropping it in the comment section. Boom, there we go. And then, yep, there you go. It's in the comment section on Facebook. So, for those of you that are interested in learning more, you can check that out. Yeah, man. I mean, that's pretty much it. It really does break my heart to see people live in such an exhausted state. I remember I remember being like that when before I found the practice of the mucus diet healing system, I was on the downhill with my energy levels to the point where it was becoming concerning. But I wasn't like sick to the point where you would be able to actually see it and recognize it. It was just things were not working like they were supposed to. And at the time, I was using my body a lot. Like my body needed to be healthy to survive. So I literally couldn't afford to go down. And I accidentally revisited the mucus diet healing system. I didn't even really intend to read it again to make it my life's practice. But when it connected, I fully gave myself to the practice. I found Professor Spira's like public library of a YouTube channel on the practice. And for almost an entire year, I pretty much just had like one headphone in at all times and just watched pretty much his entire YouTube catalog. And from there, I found the community and I got in contact with like really competent practitioners because the, the book itself, it's amazing and all the answers are there. But like I was talking about, most people are literally like too tired to think, much less too tired to study. I understand that most people have families, they have jobs, and to make that time when they already feel so weak is is incredibly difficult. And so that's where the whole transition diet 101 course, the transition diet, it comes from the mucus diet healing system. What the transition diet is fundamentally is using less harmful whole natural foods like fruits and vegetables to help you transition away from the most harmful pus and mucus forming foods. And that art form is the foundation for everything. The sunbathing, the exercise, the herbs, the fasting, all of that is like all the progress you make is almost meaningless if the eating isn't correct, because all of the obstruction that you eliminate through those other therapies, exercises, will just be reintroduced through wrong eating. And so the once the eating part is on lock, it's correct, and then you start doing the other exercises, then you start doing the prayer, the yogic sciences, the exercises, sunbathing, all these other things. You would not believe how efficient the body just eliminates all this stuff that it just doesn't need. It's such a thorough house cleaning. And that's when the body, the mind, and the spirit really start to function in a way that they didn't function before. And at first it might feel foreign and new, but over time you kind of you like I said before, you come to realize like this is actually how I was always supposed to feel. I was always supposed to experience the mind. Just clear, sharp, clarity of thought. And the spirit, that's a foreign concept and I don't really like to talk about it too much. But it's just so subtle. And for those of us that are just constipated, just from a lifetime of wrong eating, you really lose internal sensitivity. Those subtle things are just very hard to become aware of, much less work on. And so you gain access to that through the practice of the mucus diet healing system. And it's really something to contemplate, because when you study the people of old, or you just study history, like we were, I think we still are, but we're like spiritual beings. Like our cultures are have central spiritual beliefs that are extremely important. If you go back, there's a book I'm reading. Let me see if I can find it really fast. There's a book I'm reading called, see my reading light, um, Memories and Visions of Paradise. And what it pretty much is it's almost like an encyclopedia of mythology, but not really. It's just sharing the memories and visions of paradise from the mythology of different cultures all around the world. And when you look at them, like the spiritual, they were almost living in two worlds. Like their connection to the spiritual world was that clear. But when you look at it from a mucus diet healing system perspective, these people were much less obstructed than we are now. And this is also hundreds of generations, tens of generations, hundreds of generations before our time. So with the degeneration that we're experiencing, from the perspective of the mucus diet healing system, you could say that our offspring are weaker than the parents just from the get-go. They're going to get sicker faster if they live in the same way as the parents. And they are from the get-go more obstructed, so they are unable to as easily access spirit as their predecessors. And so when you go farther and farther back, you see capabilities, intelligence, all of these things, physical prowess that you just don't see today, and sometimes almost treated like myth. And look, I'm an extremely open-minded person. I'm just kind of sharing my thoughts here, but when the body and the mind and the spirit really become unobstructed and they start functioning how they're supposed to, because there's nothing keeping them from functioning how they're supposed to, you really start to tap into the human potential, and you start to see the importance of of things around you. And like that's why I say the you start to not only see beauty in everything from nature, but you also experience like this sacredness. Like you realize the sacredness of a life. Like you can't like there's so much wrong with killing something. There's so much wrong with imposing your will and forcing something to do something it doesn't want to do, like literally imposing your will to alter reality. I mean, even for example, in Memories and Visions of Paradise, it talks about the original people existed with nature so closely that the idea of agriculture and farming didn't like that didn't exist because the earth provided all the food that we would ever need. Now, it's implying that we didn't need to kill animals. It's implying that fruits, mainly fruits, were actually the food that we were supposed to eat. And if you look at Genesis 1:29, not to get biblical, I am, but um, the fruit bearing seed and herbs was supposed to be the food we were supposed to eat, and the vegetation was for the animals. So the animals are like herbivores and we're frugivores. Now, don't jump into that right away. And I mean, you can very easily see people who just tried to go 100% fruit overnight, and it's down to a science. It never works. It might work for a while, but for 20, 30, 40, 50 years, going straight from Burger King to 100% fruit, it's just not sustainable. And that's where the practice of the mucusless diet healing system comes in, because it's the art of transition, specifically the art of transitioning one's diet, which allows one to transition their body, their mind, and spirit back to its original state over a really long period of time. You don't want to rush this. It's a very miserable experience if you rush it. And I've never seen anyone last a very long time at an extremely fast pace that is uncomfortable. Usually, just end up dropping the practice altogether. And so, this inability to feel alive, this chronic exhaustion, it's just obstruction. Like truly, it's just obstruction. The stomach, the intestines, the colon are carrying 20 to 30 pounds of fecal matter, like literally old fecal matter that's just undigested, unnatural foods that we were never supposed to eat, but it never left the body. And from the perspective of the mucusless diet, that's literally like the chronic reserve stock that keeps your body sick, because the digestive tract goes directly into the circulation, so the bloodstream. So that waste then just poisons the blood, it poisons the circulation. Now you have dirty blood constantly circulating throughout your brain, your lungs, your liver, your kidneys, and it just wreaks havoc. And so that's why to even begin to feel alive, to even have a chance at annihilating this fatigue, you got to clean out the digestive tract. And that's why we put such an emphasis on proper eating, because it's right eating that will unobstruct the digestive tract and keep it unobstructed. Remember earlier I talked about how some people will just give themselves to an extremely long fast, the sunbathing, the exercise, etc., and they'll remove a lot of obstruction. But if they don't know how to eat and they don't know how to transition from a long fast back into eating, they're just going to obstruct themselves again. Just give it enough time. They'll go right back to the same state they were in, if not worse. And I don't mean that judgmental. It's literally, I've seen it with my own eyes, and it breaks my freaking heart, dude, because people are doing the best that they can. And right now, mucus free life just, we just didn't have the educational materials yet to even give people the opportunity to, with as least friction as possible, learn how to save themselves. And that's what we're working on, and that's what I feel called to do. And it's you know I'm so excited to give this course to the world, because I really believe that everything in it is going to help people unobstruct themselves, because everything in it is everything I've used to unobstruct myself. And I've seen it, I've smelled it, unfortunately, with my own eyes, like this waste, which has been sitting inside of us forever, and that is the foundational cause for all of our suffering. I remember in October, visiting a friend, and we chose to fast together. And just 4 days into this juice fast, I just started to feel this terrible weight in my colon, and I was like, oh my god, like this, I'm trying to work, but I'm just like dissolving. I can't even focus. And so, one of the practices that we do, a supporting practice along with the right eating, is colon irrigation. So, you would do something like an enema. And Professor Spira's teacher, Willie Smart, Brother Air, he pioneered something called the lemon enema. So, you use lemon juice and distilled water, and you use that to irrigate your colon. And then Spira expanded upon that, and he started to juice the lemons with the rind. So now you have a lemon rind enema. And lemon rind enemas are so freaking potent. They just, oh my God, they clean you out super well. And for those of you that are like, well, enemas, how does that even work in the first place? When the water goes in with the astringent lemon juice, astringent, think of when you eat a lemon, right? Your face puckers up. There's a squeezing of the tissues. That's what astringency is. So it squeezes the tissues inside of the colon, and so the tissues are just saturated with obstruction, this mucus-like slime, these harmful acids, these residues from drugs, and so the tissues now start to release even more waste into the colon, which will mean that when you induce this elimination event, when you finally just let go and release, you're going to release a ton of stuff, along with whatever was in there. And yeah, so in short, that's the functioning of the lemon enema. I don't want to get much deeper into it in this video, but I eliminated these like black balls of waste, and this waste looked like it had been tucked away in like the cracks of my intestines for God knows how long. And when I eliminated this waste, my energy levels, my vitality, my clarity of thought, my sense of well-being increased tenfold. Like literally the second this stuff left my body. And I felt more alive. And again, like what's the whole thing we've been talking about here? As a child, I realized that people, the older adults, were obstructed, and they were just not alive. Like they were just empty shells. But when they ate foods which stimulated them, which gave them a false sense of energy, they became alive. They had the energy to socialize with me, to connect with me. But they stimulated themselves at the cost of their life. They shortened their lifespan just a little bit. And the mucusless diet healing system reverses the fundamental cause of the very thing that keeps them from feeling alive, which is obstruction. Because as a child, I was unobstructed, and I didn't need to do this to connect with them. I went with them because they needed this. And having that shared experience of eating the same food and experience the same high is extremely central part of today's world. And Brother Aaron, Professor Spira, and other practitioners would say that it's the common practice of the death culture: eat foods which kill you to bond. And it's I've lost friends by literally just saying, like, I'm not going to eat these same foods as you. I didn't even say it explicitly. I just stopped eating the same foods, and I just stopped experiencing the same highs as them and the same lows as them. And if you've ever been someone that abused substances, you understand that when you stop using substances, it becomes really hard to relate to those that use substances, because you're not experiencing the same highs and lows, the same effects to your vitality. When people take the same type of drugs, they're going to experience the same type of thoughts, because their vitality, their mental faculties are being degenerated in the same ways. And so everyone kind of experiences the same box, and people really just start to act the same. And I'm not saying they're cookie cutters, but if you've ever been a stoner, stoners act and think relatively the same way, especially if they've smoked for a really long period of time. But when you break free of that, it's like your unique color, your unique vibration, your unique self just comes to the surface, and you really become the individual that you're meant to be, and your gifts really start to be able to shine, and it's much easier to serve the world because you don't have all this obstruction keeping you down. You don't have all this obstruction keeping you exhausted and feeling like life's not worth living, and you don't feel like you're just dissociated floating in the world. Like life becomes so viscous and intangible, and it's and so real, but you don't gain access to that until you unobstruct yourself. And there's that's the sad part, is that there's like no way around it, and that was one of the things that bummed me out when I was so deep in this elimination, is that I saw the like this is work, this is work, and it can be hard at times, but there's nothing else to do, because the only opposite direction is to just obstruct yourself and stimulate yourself, and give you a false sense of health, a false sense of vitality. But when everything comes crashing down, it all comes crashing down. It comes crashing down really hard. You can see it time and time and time and time again. And with people in my generation, I'm 26 years old. It's crumbling a lot earlier, a lot faster, and it's heartbreaking to watch someone 20 years old, 22 years old, 24 years old with a chronic disease. Are you serious? Like you're supposed to be living life. Like that type of stuff isn't even supposed to be in your consciousness. You know what I'm saying? But people's lives are being ruined earlier. Um, but it's like it shows you. It's like there's nothing else to do but unobstruct the body so that these things don't happen anymore. And might as well just make the rest of your life centered around that. Your work helps you unobstruct not only your body but your mind and your spirit. And your work makes you feel good. Your work feels exciting. Your work stimulates you. Your work itself is provides that level of satiation that is just much better than anything a burger or a steak or anything like that could ever give you. And also, when you become unobstructed, the experience of fruit and vegetables changes entirely. It becomes so much more satisfying, so deep, so rich, like you would never believe. And it's not an uncommon experience for people to not like fruits and vegetables in the beginning, but as they become unobstructed and their body is actually able to really feel the food that it's eating, rather than just have it slip and slide around a digestive tract which is completely obstructed. um, your experience with fruit completely changes, and foods that you were once just completely like, I'm never eating that, you just can't get enough of. So anyway, I've been going on pretty pretty intensely, but I appreciate everyone for watching. I appreciate everyone for listening. And yeah, you guys are awesome. I appreciate you guys checking out the stream, and I will talk to you guys later. Peace.